Hello, my fallible human. How are you? My name is Tanya MacIntyre. This is the Red Roof Recovery Show, offering programs to maintain freedom from addictions. And guess what? It's not just for addictions, it's for life. I appreciate you spending the next few minutes here with us and my life partner, my business partner and best friend, Sir Lancelot, I like to call him, my knight in shining armor. And we just most recently celebrated our 32nd wedding anniversary. Wowza! That sure goes fast, honey. I would love to spend another 32 with you. Thanks for hanging out with me.
Yeah, that'd be good.
And much of that was lived experience through my drug and alcohol addictions. More than 20 years. You stuck by me, baby. So you've got a lot to bring to the table when we are talking about both sides of addiction, because for every one person challenged by an addiction, there are 5 family and friends that are also affected. So we like to cover the gamut of emotions that are running rampant all around because addiction really is a family affair, isn't it? So we get to the cause instead of just talking about symptoms. We're intimate with the symptoms. We know what the symptoms are very well. But for me, it was self-medicating my heightened emotions of anxiety and depression for most of my adult life. So learning how to cope with life on life terms, life's adversities with healthier coping methods has been the key to my continual recovery, freedom from addictions, because I spent a lot of time relapsing, as you know, my darling.
Yes, I'm pretty sure I remember a lot more of it than you did.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. It was an interesting time of our lives when you were in the throes of your addictive behaviors. Could never understand it. Couldn't help. It was try to understand.
Exactly. So that's why you're such a great resource for family members who reach out for help as well, because there's not a whole lot of help available for family members. I think it's starting to evolve now. Here we are in 2023 at the time of this recording. And I do see family and friends programs, resources popping up. So I think we're getting there. Definitely, I think we are coming a long way to removing the stigma around addiction since COVID, of course, because addiction rates doubled. And here we are dealing with the aftermath, and I'm sure we're going to be dealing with that long after we have shuffled off the mortal coil. So we're doing what we can with what we have from where we are today, because that's what we got, 24 hours at a time. That's all we have to navigate in life, 24 hours at a time. Mm-hmm. Today, we are talking about preventing relapse, staying in the 24-hour bubble, preventing relapse, avoiding regret, because that's definitely what a relapse did for me, was just pile on more shame and regret and resentments and all of that. And how we avoid what are we going to do instead of going back into unhealthy coping habits when we get faced with a life adversity? Then we're used to just picking up a drink or a drug or doing something, gambling, shopping, sexing, texting, whatever you're doing to numb the pain of emotions. That's what we're here to talk about, getting to the cause and teaching you the tools that you need to deal with it in a healthier way.
Yeah, I think the support groups, though, starting to come up are very important for friends and family.
Mm-hmm. Because peer support is very important in addiction recovery as well. So I go to a number of different meetings. I like to check out all meetings, the secular meetings like you can find at Smart Recovery or Life Ring. There are all kinds of them now. And of course, then the traditional 12-step meetings are out there as well. The whole world migrated to Zoom during COVID, and it seems that a lot of the world has remained online, which is kind of sad in a way, because the opposite of addiction, I think, is connection. And personal connection is very important as well. So I feel grateful that in our little town of Goderich, Ontario, I have a couple of in-person meetings that I like to go to. So,
yeah, I think, as you say, connection. And I think modern society is, we see the whole thing of I've got X amount of thousand Facebook friends or TikTok friends or Instagram friends or whatever it is, but you don't meet anyone, and there's no real connection there. Our families tend to be more fragmented now, so there's not that support group that we used to have, or society used to have, which I think is a big driver towards, like I say, lack of connection, which exacerbates addictive behaviors of all types.
Yeah, there's a lot of lonely souls on the planet, and
Yeah.
the snappy slogans of recovery are very helpful for me. As you know, I like acronyms. I like the snappy slogans, and affirmations. Retraining our brain it takes repetition, right? We need to treat our brain like we treat our body when we're strengthening our muscles. We need to strengthen our emotional muscles as well, and that takes repetition.
Yeah. And again, from when you talk to peer support groups for family and friends, the new people to the thing says, I don't understand why a loved one does this. And as someone who hasn't gone through addictions, you will never understand what is the driver. And another big one is they lied to me. And my advice there is, it's not so much they lied to you, they're lying to themselves, the loved one, and they feel more guilt, which drives the lie, because you have trouble admitting to yourself that you're going down that path again. And if you have trouble admitting it to yourself, you're definitely not going to want to admit it to your loved one. So I've never seen it as you lying to me when you started, when you relapsed. You were actually letting yourself down. You weren't never letting me down. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's, like you say. So if you weren't letting me down, there was no blaming and shaming, or hopefully there wasn't, which I think is another driver towards a person having bad outcomes.
Absolutely. People who are challenged with addictions, substance use disorder, alcohol use disorder are some of the terminologies that are cropping up in medical circles, which is nice to see. It's no longer substance abuse, it's substance use disorder or substance misuse. And so I can't remember where was I going with that, honey? Down the rabbit hole again. It's gone.
No, sorry.
It's okay. It's out in the ether somewhere. It might float back.
Yeah, we were just talking about not feeling guilty about, and you
the guilt and shame, right? The guilt and shame that we carry.
Guilt and shame onto yourself.
Yes, we don't need to be reminded of what we're doing wrong, and because we know what we're doing wrong. So I think learning communication skills is really helpful for friends and family. Sometimes if you can learn to communicate more effectively, you could actually encourage your loved one to seek recovery sooner than later. And it's a way of communication that doesn't blame, shame, complain. It's a way of communication whereby you can maintain your healthy boundaries, or what I like to call mutual respect lines. I'm not fond of that word boundary. So you can create and maintain those healthy boundaries with your loved one, while at the same time using language that, instead of blaming, shaming, complaining, you actually lift them up and you concentrate on the pain that they're in and empathize with them. But at the same time, not, what's that word? Not enabling them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, codependence is a big part of addiction in families as well.
Well, there's good codependence and bad codependence. I mean, every good relationship is somewhat codependent, and most bad relationships are definitely codependent. But when it comes to the blame and shame, and from the family member perspective, is what's the point in doing it? I mean, you use the cost benefit analysis as to, is this relationship relationship still good with me, for me? And if the answer is yes, then what are you complaining about?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you trying to shame your loved one if the answer is yes? If the answer is no, why are you still in a relationship?
Yeah, I think a couple of thousand years ago, the Buddha came up with 3 simple solutions to every problem. You accept it, you change it, or you leave it. If you can't accept it, you change it. If you can't change it, you leave it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people can't accept it, and they won't change it, and they won't leave it. So they live in constant, um, an unsettling way of living, which is not good for anyone. Is that the right word? Unsettling? I don't like that word dysfunctional either.
Well, yeah. This is why when I talk to people, and they say, "What can I do?" It's you can work on yourself because you need to be resilient. Because it may come to the point where you cannot stay in the relationship that you're in for your own well-being. And if you're not resilient enough, which most people, I'm afraid, are not, they won't leave because it's, well, if I leave, what is there? So you're stuck in this circle and you get resentful, which means you blame more, which means there's more of an abrasion between the two of you, which spirals out of control, and then the whole relationship, it just gets toxic.
Yes.
So from a family man, you really need to work on yourself so you can live by yourself if you have to. You can walk out that door and say, this isn't serving me anymore.
Yeah.
But most people don't want to. They're, they, what is it? Accept it. They don't want to accept it.
Yeah.
They don't want to, they can't change it, and they're unwilling to leave it.
Right.
So where does that leave you? In this toxic downward spiral.
Yeah. Living a very unsettled, unfulfilling life, which is not good either. So we've only got a few minutes left, honey, less than 3 minutes now, because we promised to keep these to 15 minutes. Can't really fit a lot in 15 minutes, but everybody's attention span is shrinking with every year. So we have to be succinct in what we say. Lots of great communication tools available. All you have to do is email us, redroofrecovery@gmail.com. We have lots of tools of communication to share with you. If you're a family member who wants to encourage your loved one to seek recovery sooner than later, we can hopefully help you get there with some of the tools that we have. Things like, the snappy slogans of catch it, check it, change it, and the PIUS for positive communication, the acronym keep it positive, keep I statements in your conversation, understanding, sharing responsibility, lots of great things like that. I often talk about my experience in rehab, going into a treatment facility in 2009, and it was the 12-step program of Alcoholics Anonymous. So that I was indoctrinated by 12 steps, and AA saved my life without question. And something called SMART, self-management and recovery training, gave me my life back because it taught me things like cognitive therapy. But the more I'm in 12-step programs, Dr. Bob and Bill were talking about cognitive therapy before we even named it cognitive therapy, right? With the likes of Dr. Abraham Lowe as well. They were all hanging in the same circles, and they were developing cognitive therapy. We're retraining our brain. That's why the snappy slogans of 12 steps, you can repeat them. They're memorable. Take what you need, leave the rest, one day at a time, think, think, think. These are all things that we can use to retrain our brain to serve us in healthier ways. So I chair one of the meetings here in town, and I have everybody saying an alternative version of the Serenity Prayer. And it's, God, grant me the serenity to accept the people I cannot change, the courage to change the one I can, and the wisdom to know it's me. So they all seem to like that a lot. And it creates some great healthy conversations around that too. We call our meetings the purge table. We all gather around a conference table, and we call it the purge table. So the key is to keep educating yourself. Find what works for you, because there are hundreds of tools in recovery and life. The key is to find what works for you and then keep doing it. Thank you, my darling Lancelot, for your companionship and your peer support. I am eternally grateful.
I'm grateful for you too.
And thank you all for listening, watching, wherever you are. May the force be with you. And remember, you are the force.